Don't let history repeat itself. As a dermatologist, you have a unique opportunity to understand not only the familial component of melanoma, but other hereditary cancers as well. For some patients, a dermatologist may be the first HCP to recognize a troubling cancer family history that may put the patient at higher risk of developing subsequent cancers. The utilization of family history tools in dermatology practices can provide a more complete continuity of care for patients and better prevention management. Myriad Genetics, as an international leader in hereditary cancer testing, wanted to gain a deeper understanding of the genetic variants involved in melanoma and those in two other genetic cancer syndromes: hereditary breast and ovarian cancer, HBOC, and Lynch syndrome. A retrospective analysis of Myriad's patient data identified mutations associated with familial cancers. Myriad established a cohort of almost 28,000 patients with a personal or family history of melanoma who met NCCN criteria for HBOC or Lynch syndrome testing. It is firmly established that CDKN2A and CDK4 are associated with familial melanoma. But because mutations in these genes only represent a small percentage of familial melanoma cases, there is a question of whether other genes could be involved. Additionally, Myriad wanted to determine what percent of melanoma patients carry a mutation that is associated with a subsequent primary cancer and the spectrum of those mutations. Using a multi-gene hereditary cancer panel, Myriad first looked at patients with a personal history of melanoma. Within that group, Myriad found that roughly half of the patients only had melanoma, whereas the other half had melanoma and another cancer. 22% of these patients developed melanoma before going on to develop another primary cancer later in life. 70% of these patients went on to develop breast cancer, almost 10% developed ovarian cancer, and nearly 5% developed colon cancer. All of these cancer types have potential risk-reducing therapies available. Next, Myriad compared patients with melanoma family histories to patients with no melanoma family history to determine if there was a difference in the pathogenic variants in the two groups. Mutation rates were almost 9% in patients with both a personal and family history of melanoma, and were most common in ATM, BRCA1 and 2, CHEK2, and PALB2. These results also showed that the prevalence of mutations in ATM, CHEK2, and PALB2 were similar to those in patients with a non-melanoma cancer history. Ultimately, this study provides evidence that the identification of concerning family histories in patients and obtaining appropriate testing would allow dermatologists to play an integral role in patients' overall health and potentially prevent the onset of future cancers. Care in the dermatology setting doesn't have to be limited to only the largest human organ as we know it. Thoughtful consideration of family histories and predispositions for various cancers can make dermatologists sentinels for overall organ health. Tools and information like that offered by Myriad, along with appropriate testing, could broaden the dermatologist's role and integrate them even further into patient care. For almost 30 years, Myriad has been a trusted advisor transforming people's lives with pioneering molecular diagnostic tests. For more information on Myriad's myRisk hereditary cancer testing, visit www.myriadmyrisk.com.